I was 11 years old the first time my mother made me stand on a scale in front of dinner guests. The number flashed 94 pounds, and she announced to everyone at the table that I'd be eating salad while they enjoyed the lasagna she'd spent hours preparing. My older brother Marcus sat frozen with his fork halfway to his mouth, and our cousin Bethany looked down at her plate, suddenly uncomfortable. That wasn't when it started, though. Looking back now, I can trace the roots back further to when I was about 7 and my younger sister Riley was 5. But that dinner party moment was when I realized something fundamental had shifted in our household. This wasn't just about health or wellness anymore. This was about control, about appearance, about maintaining an image that my mother had decided was more important than anything else, including our well-being. My name is Jordan, and I'm 23 years old now. For most of my childhood and teenage years, I lived in Portland, Oregon, in a beautiful craftsman-style house with a perfectly manicured lawn. From the outside, we looked like the ideal American family. My mother, Patricia, worked as a fitness instructor at an exclusive gym downtown. My father, David, was a software engineer who traveled constantly for work. My brother, Marcus, was the golden child, the athlete, the one who could do no wrong. And then there was Riley and me, the daughters who were never quite good enough. The obsession didn't happen overnight. It crept in slowly, like water seeping through cracks in a foundation. When I was younger, maybe 6 or 7, Mom was relatively normal. She'd take us for ice cream on weekends. She'd let us have birthday cake. Sure, she was into fitness and healthy eating, but it seemed reasonable back then. She was a personal trainer after all. It made sense that she'd care about nutrition. Timestamp 1:30. But something changed after Riley was born. Mom had struggled to lose the baby weight, and I remember hearing her crying in the bathroom one night when I was supposed to be asleep. She kept saying something about losing her clients, about women not wanting a trainer who looked like she'd let herself go. Dad tried to comfort her, but she pushed him away. That's when the rules started appearing on our refrigerator. The first one was simple: no eating after 7 p.m. Then came no seconds at dinner. Then vegetables first, always. Within a year, our kitchen looked like a military mess hall with regulations posted everywhere. Charts tracking our meals, graphs showing our weight over time, photos of healthy bodies versus unhealthy bodies taped to the pantry door. Timestamp 2:15. By the time I turned 9, the morning ritual had been established. Every single day before we could eat breakfast, Riley and I had to weigh ourselves. Not once, but 3 times, because Mom said the scale might give a false reading. We had to record the number in a spiral notebook that she kept locked in her bedroom. If either of us had gained more than half a pound from the previous day, we'd lose privileges. Gained a pound? No TV for a week. Gained 2 pounds? No play dates with friends. Gained 3 pounds? She'd take away our favorite toys or books. The punishment system was complex and ever-evolving. Mom had a chart on her office wall where she tracked everything, color-coded by severity. Green meant we were at optimal weight. Yellow meant approaching concern. Red meant intervention required. I spent most of my childhood in the yellow zone, watching my sister slide further and further into green. Timestamp 3. Riley was naturally thin. She had my father's metabolism, the kind where she could eat a full meal and burn it off just by existing. But even that wasn't enough for Mom. She praised Riley's body constantly, holding her up as the example I should follow. "Look at how Riley's collarbones show," she'd say, running her fingers over my sister's shoulders. That's what discipline looks like. I remember Riley's face during those moments. She was only 7 or 8 years old, and she'd look confused, uncertain whether to be proud or scared. I was old enough to recognize the fear in her eyes, the way she'd started flinching whenever Mom reached for her. Marcus escaped most of it because he was a boy. Mom had different standards for him. He could eat whatever he wanted as long as he maintained muscle mass. She'd pile protein on his plate while serving Riley and me portions that wouldn't have satisfied a bird. Marcus felt guilty about it, I think. Sometimes he'd sneak food to us when Mom wasn't looking, hiding granola bars in our backpacks or leaving half-finished sandwiches where we could find them. Timestamp 4. The real turning point came when I was 12 and Riley was 10. Mom had started taking progress photos of us every Sunday morning. She'd make us stand in our underwear against the white wall in her home office while she took pictures from multiple angles. Front, side, back, arms up, arms down. She'd study these photos for hours, circling areas she deemed problematic with a red marker. "This is cellulite developing," she'd say, pointing to perfectly normal skin on my thighs. We need to address this before it gets worse. She'd print out these marked up photos and tape them to our bathroom mirrors, constant reminders of our failures. I started avoiding mirrors entirely, keeping my eyes down when I brushed my teeth, looking away when I washed my hands. Riley did the opposite. She'd stand in front of those photos for hours, turning herself at different angles, trying to see what Mom saw. Timestamp 5. Dad was home so rarely that he didn't see how bad things had gotten. When he was around, Mom would ease up slightly, pretending everything was normal. She'd let us have normal-sized portions at dinner. She wouldn't mention weight or measurements. She'd play the role of the concerned but reasonable parent, the kind who just wanted her children to be healthy. I tried talking to Dad about it once when I was about 13. He was packing for another business trip to San Francisco, and I sat on his bed watching him fold shirts into his suitcase. Dad, do you think it's normal that we have to weigh ourselves every morning? He paused, looking uncomfortable. Your mother just wants you to be healthy, Jordan. She's a professional. She knows about nutrition and fitness. But she makes Riley do jumping jacks for 3 hours every night. Riley's legs have bruises on them. Dad's face tightened. 3 hours seems excessive. I'll talk to your mother about it. But he never did. Or if he did, it didn't change anything. The next morning, the ritual continued exactly as before. Timestamp 6. By the time I was 14, I developed strategies to survive. I'd started wearing oversized clothes to hide my body. I'd learned to drink massive amounts of water before weigh-ins to make my weight more consistent, preventing the fluctuations that would trigger Mom's punishment system. I'd figured out how to chew food slowly at dinner, making small portions last longer so I wouldn't feel as hungry. But Riley was going in the opposite direction. She'd stopped eating almost entirely. Mom praised her for her discipline, for her dedication. She'd hold up Riley as the perfect example of self-control, completely blind to the fact that my little sister was slowly disappearing. I remember one particularly awful incident when Riley was 11. We were at a family barbecue at our Uncle Greg's house in Seattle. All the cousins were there, running around, eating hot dogs and hamburgers, having fun. Riley sat by herself on a lawn chair, her arms wrapped around her stomach. Aunt Caroline, Dad's sister, approached with a plate of food. Riley, honey, you need to eat something. When's the last time you had a real meal? Riley shook her head, eyes wide with panic. I'm not hungry. Sweetheart, you're skin and bones. Just try a little bit. That's when Mom swooped in, all fake smiles and gracious deflection. Riley's fine, Caroline. She ate before we came. You know how kids are, always snacking. Aunt Caroline looked skeptical, but didn't push. After she walked away, Mom leaned down to whisper in Riley's ear. I was close enough to hear it. Good girl, you don't need that garbage. We'll have a proper meal when we get home. The proper meal turned out to be a cup of vegetable broth and half an apple. Timestamp 7. My freshman year of high school was when I started researching eating disorders. I'd check out books from the library, hiding them under my mattress so Mom wouldn't find them. I read about anorexia nervosa, bulimia, orthorexia. Every page felt like it was describing our household, describing Riley's deteriorating condition. I tried to talk to Riley about it, but she'd shut down immediately. She'd been so thoroughly indoctrinated by Mom's worldview that she genuinely believed this was normal, that this was love. When I suggested that maybe Mom's rules weren't healthy, Riley looked at me like I'd suggested we burn the house down. Mom's trying to help us, Riley said, her voice flat. She doesn't want us to be fat and ugly like other girls. Riley, we're not fat. You're not fat. You're literally disappearing. She turned away from me, ending the conversation. After that, she started avoiding me, probably afraid I'd try to make her eat more, try to sabotage her progress. Timestamp 8. The school counselor called Mom in for a meeting when Riley was in 6th grade. Apparently, her teachers had noticed her falling asleep in class, her inability to concentrate, her withdrawal from friends. The counselor gently suggested that Riley might benefit from seeing a therapist, someone who could help her navigate the normal pressures of adolescence. Mom smiled that perfect smile of hers and thanked the counselor for her concern. She assured them that everything was fine at home, that Riley was just going through a phase, that she'd handle it. Then she took Riley home and screamed at her for embarrassing the family, for making people think there was something wrong with us. That night, I heard Riley crying in her room. I stood outside her door with my hand on the knob, wanting to go in, wanting to comfort her. But I was paralyzed by my own fear. my own need to survive in this toxic environment. I told myself I'd help her tomorrow, that I'd figure out a way to fix this. But tomorrow never came, not the way I'd hoped. Timestamp 8. When I started my sophomore year at Lincoln High School, Riley began 8th grade at the same school. For the first time, we were in the same building, and I could see firsthand just how bad things had gotten. She'd shuffle through the hallways with her head down, arms crossed over her chest like she was trying to make herself smaller. Her friends had mostly abandoned her, or she'd abandoned them. She'd eat lunch alone in the library, claiming she was studying, though I knew she wasn't eating at all. I tried to sit with her once, bringing an extra sandwich I'd bought from the cafeteria. "Riley, please, just eat half of it. I won't tell Mom." She stared at the sandwich like it was a live grenade. "Do you know how many calories are in that? How many grams of fat?" "I don't care about calories. You need to eat." "You don't understand," she whispered, her voice trembling. "If I eat that, I'll gain weight. If I gain weight, Mom will know. She always knows." "Riley, you weigh maybe 90 pounds. You're 5'4". You need to gain weight." She stood up abruptly, nearly knocking over her chair. "Leave me alone, Jordan. You're jealous because I have discipline and you don't." The words stung, even though I knew they weren't really hers. They were Mom's words, Mom's poison, coming out of my little sister's mouth. Timestamp 9. Mom had started a blog that year. She called it Raising Healthy, Beautiful Daughters, and it featured carefully curated photos of Riley, always photographed from her best angles, always smiling in pictures that were months old from when she looked slightly more alive. Mom would write these long posts about the importance of teaching children discipline, about the obesity epidemic, about how modern parents were too permissive with junk food and sedentary lifestyles. The blog gained followers quickly. Other mothers commented with praise, asking for advice, sharing their own concerns about their children's weights. Mom ate it up. She'd spend hours responding to comments, positioning herself as an expert, as someone who had cracked the code of raising fit, healthy children. The irony was devastating. She was literally starving Riley while building a following based on the illusion of health and wellness. I created an anonymous account and left a comment once, carefully worded, "Has anyone else noticed that extreme restriction in childhood can lead to eating disorders? Just concerned about pushing kids too hard?" Mom deleted it within minutes. Then she made a post about concern trolls and people who enable childhood obesity by spreading misinformation. Her followers rallied around her, attacking anyone who suggested that maybe, just maybe, her methods were too extreme. Timestamp 10. Marcus left for college that fall, heading to UCLA on a football scholarship. His departure left a vacuum in the house, one less buffer between Mom's obsession and her targets. Without Marcus there to redirect Mom's attention occasionally, Riley and I bore the full force of her scrutiny. The night before Marcus left, he came into my room. He was 18, about to start his adult life, and he looked guilty, ashamed. "Jordan, I'm sorry." "For what?" "For leaving you guys, for not doing more. I should have said something years ago. I should have protected you and Riley." I wanted to tell him it was okay, that it wasn't his fault, but I couldn't get the words out because part of me was angry at him for being able to escape while we were stuck here. "Just keep an eye on Riley," he said. "She's gotten so thin. Promise me you'll watch out for her." I promise. It was a promise I tried desperately to keep, but I was fighting against forces way stronger than a 15-year-old girl could manage. Timestamp 11. 2 months into the school year, things took an even darker turn. Mom started implementing what she called incentive programs. If Riley lost 5 pounds, she'd earn a shopping trip. If she maintained her weight for a month, she'd get a new phone. If she gained any weight, she'd lose access to the internet, her books, her art supplies, everything that brought her joy. The incentives worked in the worst possible way. Riley became obsessed with hitting the targets, with earning the rewards. She'd exercise compulsively, doing crunches in her room at midnight, running in place while watching TV. I'd hear her door opening and closing at odd hours, and I knew she was going to the bathroom to weigh herself on the secret scale she'd hidden in her closet. Mom's own behavior was escalating too. She'd started taking supplements, ordering mysterious pills and powders from websites that looked sketchy even to my teenage eyes. She'd blend them into smoothies for Riley, claiming they were vitamins, that they'd help with bone health and energy levels. I asked to see the bottles once, but Mom shut me down immediately. "These are prescription supplements, very expensive. You don't need to worry about it." But I did worry, because Riley was getting worse, not better. Her hair was falling out. Her skin had a grayish tint. She developed dark circles under her eyes that made her look like she hadn't slept in weeks. Timestamp 12. The school nurse called home in November. Riley had passed out during gym class, collapsed while running laps. By the time I got to the nurse's office, Mom was already there, all concern and maternal worry in front of the school staff. She didn't eat breakfast this morning, Mom said, shaking her head sadly. I told her she needed to eat, but you know teenagers, they think they know everything. It was a lie. Mom had specifically told Riley she couldn't eat breakfast because she'd gained 3/4 of a pound that morning. But I couldn't say that. Not with the nurse right there, not with Mom's hand on my shoulder in that way that looked affectionate but was actually a warning. The nurse recommended a full medical checkup, maybe some blood work to check for anemia or thyroid issues. Mom agreed readily, promising to make an appointment right away. She never did. Instead, she tightened the restrictions even more. Riley was now forbidden from eating anything that Mom hadn't personally prepared and measured. No school lunch, no snacks from friends, nothing that Mom couldn't control completely. Timestamp 13. I started documenting everything in a journal I kept hidden in my school locker. Times when Riley wouldn't eat. Mom's angry outbursts, the supplements and pills, the weigh-ins, the punishments. I didn't know what I'd do with this information, but some instinct told me I needed to keep a record, to have proof that this was happening. My own relationship with food had become complicated too. I wasn't starving myself like Riley, but I developed weird rituals and anxieties around eating. I'd feel guilty after every meal, hearing Mom's voice in my head cataloging calories and fat grams. I'd catch myself pinching my stomach in the mirror, looking for the flaws that Mom always pointed out. I told myself I was better off than Riley, that at least I was eating, at least I was surviving. But the truth was, Mom had damaged us both. The scars just looked different. Timestamp 14. Dad came home for Thanksgiving that year, his first visit since September. He took one look at Riley and his face went pale. She was wearing a baggy sweater that nearly swallowed her whole frame, her wrists poking out like twigs from the sleeves. Patricia, what's going on? Riley looks sick. Mom laughed it off. She's going through a growth spurt. You know how kids get gangly when they're shooting up? She'll fill out. She doesn't look like she's filling out. She looks like she's wasting away. The argument that followed was explosive. Dad demanded that Riley see a doctor. Mom insisted everything was fine, that Dad was overreacting because he was never around. The fight escalated until Dad threatened to take Riley to the emergency room himself. That's when Mom played her trump card. She pulled out her phone and showed Dad the blog, the thousands of followers, the comments from other mothers praising her methods. See, I know what I'm doing. You're in San Francisco building apps while I'm here actually raising our children. Don't you dare undermine me. Dad backed down. He always backed down. Timestamp 15. Riley turned 13 in December, and Mom threw her a birthday party that was more performance than celebration. She invited all her blog followers' daughters, a dozen girls who'd been raised with similar restrictions, similar obsessions. They sat around our dining table picking at rice cakes and carrot sticks while Mom photographed everything for her blog. Look at these beautiful, healthy girls, she captioned the photo. Proof that discipline and proper parenting create happy, confident children. The girls in that photo looked miserable. Several of them would later be hospitalized for eating disorders. One would die during my senior year, her heart giving out at 15 years old. But in that moment, Mom saw only what she wanted to see. Validation. Proof that she was right, that her methods worked. Riley didn't eat anything at her own birthday party. She sat at the head of the table with a glass of water, watching everyone else nibble at the meager offerings, looking both triumphant and utterly empty. Timestamp 16. That Christmas was the last one we'd all spend together as a family, though we didn't know it at the time. Dad gave Riley a gift card to her favorite bookstore, something that used to make her light up with joy. She looked at it with dull eyes and set it aside. What do you say, Riley? Mom prompted. Thank you, Riley whispered, her voice barely audible. After dinner, I found her in the bathroom, staring at her reflection in the mirror. She was shirtless, running her hands over her visible rib cage, counting the bones. Riley? She turned to look at me, and for just a moment, I saw a flash of the sister I used to know. The one who'd build blanket forts with me. The one who'd laugh at stupid jokes. The one who'd steal cookies from the jar when we were little. Jordan, I'm so tired, she said. Then rest. Stop doing this to yourself. She shook her head slowly. I can't. If I stop, I'll lose everything. Mom will hate me. I'll be ugly and fat and worthless. You're not worthless. You're dying, Riley. Can't you see that? She looked back at her reflection, and that flash of awareness was gone, replaced by Mom's programming. No, I'm winning. I'm finally winning. I left her there, standing in front of the mirror, trapped in a delusion that would nearly kill her. Timestamp 16. January brought brutal cold to Portland, ice coating the streets and frost covering our windows every morning. Inside our house, things were even colder. Mom had ramped up her regime after the holidays, declaring a New Year, New Discipline campaign that she documented extensively on her blog. Riley was now required to exercise for 4 hours a day, 2 hours in the morning before school, 2 hours at night before bed. Mom supervised every minute, standing over Riley with a timer and a clipboard, recording everything. Jump rope, 20 minutes. Burpees, 15 minutes. Running in place, 30 minutes. The list went on and on. I'd wake up at 5 in the morning to the sound of Riley's feet pounding on the floor below my bedroom. The whole house would shake with her movements, this desperate, exhausted routine she couldn't escape. Some mornings I'd sneak downstairs to find her crying while doing jumping jacks, tears streaming down her face, but her body still moving because Mom would reset the timer if she stopped. Timestamp 17. Mom's blog had exploded in popularity. She now had over 40,000 followers and had started monetizing through sponsorships. Supplement companies would send her free products in exchange for testimonials. Activewear brands featured her in their marketing. She'd even been interviewed for a local Portland lifestyle magazine, positioning herself as an expert in childhood health and wellness. The article ran with photos of our immaculate house, our organized kitchen with its charts and graphs, and a carefully posed picture of Riley smiling in workout clothes. The journalist praised Mom's dedication, her innovative approaches to keeping children healthy in an age of fast food and screen time. Reading that article made me physically sick. The journalist had been in our house, had seen Riley, had somehow missed all the obvious signs of abuse. Or maybe she'd seen them and chosen to ignore them because the story of the perfect fitness mom was more compelling than the truth. Timestamp 18. School became my only sanctuary. I joined the debate team that year, partially because I enjoyed it, but mostly because it meant staying late after school, eating dinner in the cafeteria instead of at home. The debate coach, Ms. Jennifer Rodriguez, was young and energetic, recently graduated from Reed College. She started noticing things about me, asking questions I wasn't ready to answer. Jordan, you've lost weight since the beginning of the year. Are you feeling okay? I'm fine, just busy with school. You know you can talk to me if anything's going on at home, right? I wanted to tell her everything, but I was terrified of what would happen if I did. I'd heard stories about kids who reported their parents, kids who ended up in foster care or split between relatives. What if I made things worse? What if Riley blamed me? So I'd smile and thank Ms. Rodriguez and change the subject, keeping all the secrets locked inside while they slowly poisoned me from within. Timestamp 19. February 14th, Valentine's Day. I came home from debate practice to find Riley unconscious in the upstairs hallway, an empty bottle of Mom's supplements scattered around her. The bottle label was faded, expiration date long past, but I could make out the words thermogenic fat burner and several skull and crossbone warnings. I screamed for Mom while checking Riley's pulse. She was breathing, but barely, her chest rising in shallow, irregular gasps. Her skin was cold and clammy, lips tinged blue. Mom appeared at the top of the stairs, and for one horrible moment, she just stood there, frozen. Then her training kicked in, and she started barking orders at me. Call 911, now. Tell them she's unresponsive but breathing. My hands shook so badly I could barely dial. The operator's voice was calm, walking me through the steps. Place her in the recovery position. Monitor her breathing. Don't leave her alone. Mom knelt beside Riley, checking her vitals with practiced efficiency. But I saw something in Mom's face that I'd never seen before. Fear. Real, genuine fear that she might lose her daughter. It lasted only seconds before her mask slipped back into place, but I saw it. Timestamp 20. The paramedics arrived within 8 minutes. They loaded Riley onto a stretcher, asking rapid-fire questions about her medical history, her weight, what she'd taken. Mom answered everything with smooth authority, positioning herself as the concerned parent who'd done everything right. She's been struggling with body image issues, Mom told them. I've been trying to get her help, but she refuses. This is exactly what I was worried about. It was such a grotesque inversion of the truth that I nearly vomited right there in the hallway. But I was too focused on Riley, on her gray face and slack features, to process my rage at Mom's lies. At the hospital, they pumped Riley's stomach and started IV fluids. The doctor, a tired-looking man in his 50s named Dr. Kumar, examined her with growing concern. When was the last time she ate a full meal? Mom didn't hesitate. She ate breakfast this morning, oatmeal with fruit. Another lie. Riley hadn't eaten breakfast in weeks. Dr. Kumar made notes in his chart, his frown deepening. Her BMI is dangerously low. She's severely malnourished. We're going to need to keep her for observation and run a full workup. Timestamp 21. They admitted Riley to the pediatric ward. Dad flew home immediately, arriving at the hospital at 2 a.m, still wearing his work clothes from the San Francisco office. The look he gave Mom could have melted steel. How did this happen, Patricia? She found my supplements. I've told her 1,000 times not to go through my things. You know how impulsive teenagers can be? This isn't about her being impulsive. Look at her, Patricia. Look at what you've done to our daughter. The fight that erupted in that hospital waiting room was years in the making. Dad's voice rising, Mom's voice rising to match. Other families pretending not to listen while very obviously listening. A security guard hovering nearby, ready to intervene. It ended with Dad saying 4 words that changed everything. I want a divorce. Mom's face went white, then red. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life, and I'm filing for full custody of both girls. You think any judge will give you custody? You're never home. You don't know the first thing about raising children. I know enough not to starve them. I know enough not to force them to exercise until they collapse. I know enough to see that what you're doing is abuse. Timestamp 22. The custody battle started immediately. Dad hired a family lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Chen who specialized in cases involving parental abuse and neglect. Mom hired her own attorney, a man who'd made a career defending parents in contentious custody cases. The hospital social worker, a kind woman named Deborah Mitchell, interviewed both of us separately. She asked gentle but probing questions about life at home, about Mom's rules, about our eating habits. I told her everything. The weigh-ins, the restrictions, the blog, the supplements, the 4-hour exercise sessions, all of it. Riley, however, defended Mom. Even after nearly dying from an overdose of diet pills, she insisted that Mom was just trying to help, that she'd taken the pills on her own, that everything at home was fine. She's been brainwashed, Ms. Mitchell told Dad and his lawyer during one meeting. I've seen it before in cases of long-term psychological abuse. The victim becomes so enmeshed in the abuser's worldview that they can't see the abuse for what it is. Timestamp 23. Riley spent 6 days in the hospital. Her condition stabilized, but the medical reports painted a grim picture. Severe malnutrition, electrolyte imbalances, early signs of osteoporosis at 13 years old. Her heart showed abnormalities that suggested long-term stress and inadequate nutrition. Dr. Kumar recommended immediate intensive treatment at a residential eating disorder facility. Mom objected, insisting she could provide better care at home. Dad overruled her, using his emergency medical custody to approve the treatment. You've lost the right to make medical decisions for our children, Dad said. From now on, everything goes through me. Mom's reaction was volcanic. She threatened legal action. She claimed Dad was turning Riley and me against her. She posted on her blog about alienated mothers and malicious ex-partners, painting herself as the victim of a conspiracy. Her followers ate it up. Hundreds of comments poured in, supporting her, attacking Dad, accusing him of parental alienation. Some of her most dedicated followers even started showing up at the hospital, bringing flowers and cards, creating an uncomfortable circus atmosphere. Timestamp 24. The night before Riley was transferred to the residential facility, I sat with her in her hospital room. She was hooked up to monitors, IV pole standing beside her bed like a silent guard. She looked impossibly small in that hospital gown, younger than her 13 years. I hate you, she said suddenly, her voice flat and emotionless. You did this. You turned Dad against Mom. You ruined everything. The words should have hurt, but I was too exhausted for pain. I saved your life, Riley. I didn't ask you to. I was fine. You were dying. I was happy. That broke something in me. The fact that Riley equated slow death with happiness, that Mom had so thoroughly warped her sense of reality that she couldn't see how sick she'd become. One day, I said quietly, You'll understand that I did this because I love you, not because I wanted to hurt you." She turned her face away, ending the conversation. But just before I left the room, I heard her whisper something so quiet I almost missed it. "I wanted to lose 5 more pounds for Mom's birthday." Timestamp 24. The residential facility was called Serenity Hills, located about an hour outside Portland in the Willamette Valley. It was designed specifically for adolescents with eating disorders, housed in a converted Victorian mansion surrounded by gardens and walking trails. It looked peaceful from the outside, but I knew the work that happened inside those walls would be anything but peaceful. Riley fought the admission every step of the way. She had to be physically helped into the car by hospital staff, screaming that we were betraying her, that Mom would never forgive us. The entire drive to the facility, she sat in silence, arms crossed, staring out the window with barely contained rage. Dad filled out paperwork while Riley underwent intake evaluation. I waited in a cheerful reception area that felt at odds with the gravity of the situation, reading brochures about recovery and family therapy that all seemed to promise miracles. "The first month is always the hardest," the intake coordinator told Dad. "She'll be angry. She'll likely refuse to engage in treatment. Many patients here go through a period of blaming family members for forcing them into care." Dad's hands shook as he signed the admission forms. "Will she get better?" The coordinator chose her words carefully. "With time, proper treatment, and family support, many of our patients make significant progress. But recovery isn't linear. There will be setbacks." Timestamp 25. Mom showed up at the facility 3 hours later, somehow having found out where Riley had been taken. Security stopped her at the gate after Dad had specifically listed her as not permitted for visitation. She made a scene, screaming about her parental rights, about kidnapping, about illegal custody maneuvers. A facility administrator came out to speak with her, calmly explaining the temporary custody arrangement and the court order. Mom threatened lawsuits, threatening to expose them all for holding children against their parents' will. When that didn't work, she tried a different tactic. Tears, breakdown, claiming she just wanted to see her baby, to make sure she was okay. "Your daughter needs professional help," the administrator said firmly. "The best thing you can do for her right now is respect the treatment process." Mom eventually left, but not before taking photos of the facility and posting them on her blog with a lengthy caption about corrupt mental health systems and parents' rights being violated. Her followers rallied around her, some even showing up at the facility gates in a makeshift protest. Timestamp 26. I moved in with Dad full-time immediately after Riley's admission. We stayed in a cramped apartment in Southeast Portland while the divorce proceedings churned forward and the custody battle intensified. The apartment was nothing like our house. No charts, no scales, no rules about food. At first, the lack of structure felt disorienting. Dad didn't know how to parent teenagers, especially a daughter who'd been raised in such an abnormal environment. He'd order takeout and look at me uncertainly, as if asking permission. "Is pizza okay?" I'd nod, still hearing Mom's voice in my head calculating calories and fat grams, but forcing myself to take a slice, to eat it, to keep it down. "You can eat as much as you want," Dad would say, his voice too bright. "No rules here, just eat healthy portions, I guess. God, I don't know what I'm doing." His honesty was strangely comforting. At least he admitted he didn't have all the answers, unlike Mom who'd always been so certain of her twisted logic. Timestamp 27. School became difficult after Riley's hospitalization. News had spread through Lincoln High, and people looked at me differently. Some with pity, some with curiosity, some with that particular brand of teenage cruelty that thrives on others' misfortune. "I heard your mom was starving you guys," a girl named Brittany said at my locker one day, loud enough for nearby students to hear. Is that true? I ignored her, but the damage was done. Within days, everyone seemed to know some version of the story, most of them wildly inaccurate. Rumors spread that I'd reported my own mother for abuse. True. That I was jealous of Riley's success. False. That I was lying for attention. False. That our whole family was insane. Debatable. Ms. Rodriguez, my debate coach, pulled me aside after practice one afternoon. "Jordan, I know things are hard right now. If you need to take time off from the team, no one would blame you." "I don't want time off. Debate is the only normal thing in my life." She studied me for a long moment. "Okay, but my door's always open if you need to talk. About anything." Timestamp 28. The first time Dad and I visited Riley at Serenity Hills, she refused to see us. The therapist explained that she was still in the angry phase of treatment, still blaming us for her hospitalization. They recommended we give her space for now, let her focus on the therapeutic work. The second visit, 2 weeks later, she agreed to meet in the common room with a therapist present. She looked slightly better, less gray, more color in her cheeks, but her eyes were hard when she looked at us. "Riley, sweetheart, how are you feeling?" Dad asked. "How do you think I'm feeling? You put me in here like I'm some kind of criminal." "We put you here because you almost died," I said, unable to stop myself. Riley's jaw tightened. "Mom says you're trying to turn everyone against her. She says you're lying about everything. Mom has been in contact with you." Dad's voice rose. "She's not supposed to have any contact." Riley's eyes flicked away guiltily. "She finds ways." It turned out Mom had been circumventing the no-contact order by creating fake social media accounts and messaging Riley through various platforms. She'd been feeding Riley her own version of events, maintaining her psychological grip even from a distance. Timestamp 29. The custody hearing happened in late March. Dad's lawyer presented medical records, hospital reports, testimony from Dr. Kumar and the Serenity Hills staff. She showed the judge photos of Riley at her sickest, her ribs prominent, her face gaunt. She entered into evidence the blog posts where Mom essentially bragged about her restrictive regime. Mom's lawyer tried to frame it as a misunderstanding, a dedicated mother whose well-intentioned health focus had been misinterpreted. He painted Dad as an absent parent swooping in to play hero, claiming Mom had been dealing with Riley's eating disorder for years while Dad ignored it from across the country. When I was called to testify, I sat in that witness box with my heart hammering, my hands sweating. Mom stared at me from her table, and for a moment I was 7 years old again, desperate for her approval, terrified of her disappointment. Then I thought of Riley in that hospital bed, tubes and monitors, nearly dead because of those pills. I thought of all the weigh-ins, all the punishments, all the years of psychological torture. And I told the truth. Timestamp 30. Judge Martha Williams listened to all the testimony with a neutral expression that gave away nothing. When she finally rendered her decision, her voice was stern. "This is one of the most disturbing cases I've encountered in 20 years on the bench. Mrs. Patricia Chen, your actions toward your daughters constitute systematic psychological and medical abuse. While you may have believed you were acting in their best interests, the evidence clearly shows you have caused severe harm to Riley and psychological damage to Jordan." Mom started to protest, but her lawyer shushed her. "I am granting full legal and physical custody to David Chen, effective immediately. Patricia Chen, you will have no contact with either minor child until Riley turns 18, at which point she may choose to initiate contact if she wishes. You will undergo a psychiatric evaluation and complete a parenting course before any future custody discussions can occur." Mom stood up, knocking her chair over. "This is insane. You're giving my children to a man who doesn't even know them. I'm their mother. They need me." "Bailiff," Judge Williams said calmly. Security approached to escort Mom from the courtroom. As she was led past our table, Mom leaned toward me and hissed, "This is all your fault. You destroyed this family. You destroyed your sister. I hope you can live with that." Timestamp 31. The weeks after the custody hearing were strange and surreal. Dad and I moved into a bigger apartment, a 2-bedroom place near Reed College. He bought proper furniture, hung pictures on the walls, tried to create something resembling a home. We established new routines, normal routines, dinner at 6, homework at the table, weekend movies. Sometimes I'd catch Dad looking at me with this expression of mixed relief and regret, as if he couldn't believe he'd missed so much, hadn't seen what was happening until it was almost too late. "I'm sorry," he said one night while we were washing dishes together. "I should have been here. I should have protected you both." "You didn't know. Mom hid it well." "I should have known. I'm your father. I should have seen it." He was right, but I also understood the complexities. The way Mom had manipulated everyone, how she'd presented one face to the world while showing her true self only to Riley and me. Blaming Dad felt both justified and pointless. Timestamp 32. Marcus came home from UCLA for spring break. He'd been following the custody case remotely, getting updates from Dad, but seeing him in person unleashed something in both of us. We sat in my bedroom, and suddenly we were both crying. All the years of pretending everything was fine, finally crumbling. "I was such a coward," Marcus said. "I knew what she was doing, and I just left." "You were 18. You were going to college. What were you supposed to do?" Something, anything. I should have done something. We talked for hours that night, comparing memories, filling in gaps in each other's stories. Marcus told me about times I hadn't known about, times when Mom had done similar things to him when he was younger before she'd shifted her focus to Riley and me. He'd just been better at hiding it, at playing the role she wanted. I think she was never really okay, Marcus said. I remember, I must have been 6 or 7, finding her in the bathroom crying because Dad had commented that she looked like she'd put on a few pounds. It wasn't even mean, just an observation, but she lost it, started exercising obsessively for weeks. Mom's issues ran deeper than we'd realized, roots tangled in her own childhood, her own mother's voice echoing through the generations. Timestamp 32. Spring turned to summer, and Riley remained at Serenity Hills. The facility recommended she stay for a minimum of 6 months, possibly longer depending on her progress. We were allowed to visit once a week now that she'd moved past her anger phase and into what the therapist called processing. During one visit in late May, Riley looked different. Not just physically, though she'd gained weight and looked healthier, but something in her eyes had changed. She looked confused, like someone waking up from a long dream and trying to make sense of where they were. I've been thinking about the weigh-ins, she said during family therapy, how we had to step on the scale 3 times every morning. Dad and I nodded, letting her continue. At the time, it seemed normal. It seemed like love, like Mom cared about us enough to keep us healthy. But here, they've helped me see that wasn't love, was it? The therapist, a gentlewoman named Dr. Sarah Martinez, encouraged Riley. What do you think it was, Riley? Control. Riley's voice cracked. It was about controlling us. Every bite, every pound, every moment of our day. She was controlling everything. It was the first real breakthrough, the first time Riley had acknowledged the abuse for what it was. Timestamp 33. But Mom wasn't done fighting. Even with the custody order in place, she found ways to maintain her presence in our lives. She continued posting on her blog, now reframing herself as a victim of a corrupt system. Her follower count had actually increased, with thousands of people rallying around her narrative of a mother wrongly persecuted for caring about her children's health. She'd post throwback photos of Riley smiling, with captions like, "Before they took her away from me," and "My beautiful daughter, stolen by false accusations." She'd share screenshots of supportive messages, building a community of people who believed her version of events. Some of her followers went further. They'd show up at Serenity Hills trying to deliver messages to Riley. They'd leave comments on Dad's barely used Facebook page, attacking him for tearing apart a family. A few even found my Instagram and sent me hateful messages calling me a liar, an attention seeker, a daughter who'd betrayed her mother. I eventually deleted all my social media, unable to handle the constant barrage of strangers who thought they understood our situation based on Mom's curated version of events. Timestamp 34. In June, the police investigation that had been quietly ongoing since Riley's hospitalization finally concluded. The district attorney called Dad into her office to discuss pressing charges. We have enough evidence to pursue multiple counts of child abuse and endangerment, DA Rebecca Torres explained. The expired supplements alone could constitute reckless endangerment. Combined with the medical records showing systematic malnutrition, we have a strong case. Dad looked torn. What would that mean for the girls? Would they have to testify? Possibly, though we'd work to minimize their direct involvement. Riley's medical records and the hospital social worker's testimony could carry much of the case. I need to talk to Jordan and Riley about this. Riley, when asked during our next visit to Serenity Hills, was adamant. No, I don't want to testify. I don't want to send Mom to jail. I just want to be left alone to get better. I felt differently. She nearly killed Riley. She needs to face consequences. She's already lost custody, Riley said. Isn't that enough? What about the next family? What if she remarries, has more kids? What if she becomes a foster parent or works at a gym with kids? Someone needs to stop her. The question hung in the air, unanswered. Timestamp 35. Dad consulted with Riley's treatment team at Serenity Hills. Dr. Martinez expressed concern that a trial, especially one requiring Riley to testify, could derail her recovery. She was still so fragile, still working to rebuild her sense of reality and self-worth. The most important thing right now is Riley's healing, Dr. Martinez said. A lengthy court battle could re-traumatize her, make her backslide. We need to consider what's best for her well-being, not just what's best for justice. It was an impossible choice. Protect Riley now by avoiding a trial, or protect potential future victims by ensuring mom faced criminal consequences. In the end, Dad decided to pursue limited charges, just enough to get a criminal record established without requiring Riley's testimony. The DA wasn't happy about it, but she understood the family's position. Mom was charged with 3 counts of child endangerment. She pleaded no contest in a deal that gave her 6 months in county jail and 5 years probation, along with mandatory psychiatric treatment and permanent addition to the child abuse registry. 6 months, for years of torture, for nearly killing her daughter, for psychological damage that would take decades to heal. 6 months. Timestamp 36. I returned to Lincoln High for my junior year that fall while Riley remained at Serenity Hills. The school felt different now, or maybe I was different. I'd stopped caring what people thought about our family drama. When Brittany made another snide comment about my crazy mom, I just looked at her and said, "Yeah, she was. Got anything useful to contribute?" Ms. Rodriguez had become a quiet source of support, checking in regularly, making sure I was handling the stress. "You know, Jordan, what you did took incredible courage. Reporting abuse, especially parental abuse, is one of the hardest things a child can do. It doesn't feel courageous. It just feels like surviving." Sometimes those are the same thing. I'd also started seeing a therapist, Dr. Helen Park, who specialized in trauma and family dynamics. It was Dad's suggestion, though I was skeptical at first. "I'm not the one who was starving myself," I'd protested. "Riley's the one who needs therapy." "You went through trauma too," Dad said gently. "Different trauma than Riley, but trauma nonetheless. You spent your entire childhood in that environment. You deserve help processing it." Timestamp 37. The first few therapy sessions were awkward. I'd sit on Dr. Park's comfortable couch, looking at the tasteful artwork on her walls, wondering what I was supposed to say. She'd ask open-ended questions, and I'd give minimal answers, still programmed by years of keeping family secrets. But slowly, session by session, I started opening up. I talked about the constant hypervigilance, always monitoring Mom's mood, trying to predict her reactions. I talked about the guilt of having it easier than Riley, the survivor's guilt of being the daughter who ate while my sister starved. I talked about my complicated feelings toward Dad, love mixed with resentment for his absence. Trauma doesn't only affect the primary victim, Dr. Park explained. Everyone in an abusive family system is harmed, just in different ways. Your experience is valid, Jordan. Your pain matters. It was the first time anyone had acknowledged that I, too, had been hurt. That just because I wasn't the one in the hospital didn't mean I'd escaped unscathed. Timestamp 38. Riley came home for Thanksgiving, her first time leaving Serenity Hills for an extended visit. She'd been in treatment for 8 months and had made significant progress. She was up to a healthy weight, her color had returned, and she was participating in therapy without resistance. But being back in Portland triggered something in her. The first night, I found her in the bathroom at 2 a.m, standing in front of the mirror in her pajamas, tears streaming down her face. "I feel so fat," she whispered. I look at myself and all I hear is Mom's voice telling me I'm disgusting. I sat with her on the bathroom floor, both of us crying. "Mom's voice isn't truth, Riley. It was never truth. But what if she was right? What if I am lazy and undisciplined? What if I let myself go and become everything she said I would? Riley, you almost died. Mom's version of healthy was killing you." She nodded, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. Recovery wasn't a straight line. The programming ran deep. Timestamp 39. Marcus brought his girlfriend home for Christmas, a nice girl named Jessica from his economics class. We all tried to have a normal family holiday, cooking dinner together, watching movies, playing board games. But there were ghosts in every room, memories in every corner. Riley caught me staring at the spot where our old scale used to sit in the bathroom. "I dream about it sometimes," she said. "The weigh-ins. In the dreams, I'm stepping on the scale and the number keeps going up and up. And Mom's standing there shaking her head, so disappointed." "Do you ever dream about the future?" I asked. "About who you want to be when you're healthy, when you're free from all of this?" She thought for a long moment. "I don't know who I am without the eating disorder. It's been part of me for so long. I don't know what I like, what I want, who I'm supposed to be." Mom's voice told me everything for so many years. Now that it's getting quieter, there's just silence. "Maybe that's okay," I said. "Maybe you need the silence to figure out your own voice." Timestamp 40 gum. On New Year's Eve, the five of us, Dad, Marcus, Jessica, Riley, and I, sat in the living room of our apartment counting down to midnight. When the clock struck 12, we toasted with sparkling cider. Riley was still hesitant around certain foods and drinks, and we all supported her boundaries. To new beginnings, Dad said, raising his glass. To survival, Marcus added. To family, Jessica said, looking around at all of us with genuine affection. Riley and I looked at each other. To healing, we said in unison, then laughed at the jinx. It wasn't perfect. We were all damaged in different ways, still working through years of trauma. Riley would return to Serenity Hills for another 3 months. I'd continue therapy for years. Dad would always carry guilt about his absence. Marcus would struggle with his own feelings about escaping while we'd suffered. But we were alive. We were together. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, there was hope that things might actually get better. Mom was scheduled to be released from jail in February. The thought terrified all of us, even though there were restraining orders and court orders meant to protect us. Because we knew that legal documents couldn't contain Mom's obsession, couldn't stop her from finding ways to insert herself back into our lives. But that was a problem for February. Tonight was about celebrating making it through the worst year of our lives and coming out the other side. Timestamp 40. Mom's release from county jail in late February came with a list of conditions. She had to continue psychiatric treatment, attend parenting classes, check in regularly with her probation officer, and maintain a minimum distance of 500 feet from Riley and me at all times. She was forbidden from any contact, direct or indirect, including social media. Dad got notification of her release date 2 weeks in advance. He called an emergency family meeting, gathering Riley, Marcus, and me in the living room. She's getting out February 28th, he said, his voice tight. I want to make sure we're all prepared. The restraining order is in place, but realistically, she's going to try to contact you. We need to have a plan. Riley had been doing so well in treatment, but at the mention of Mom's release, her face went pale. What if she shows up here? She can't. This address isn't in any public records. I made sure of that. Mom always finds a way, I said, echoing everyone's unspoken fear. Timestamp 41. The day after Mom's release, her blog updated for the first time in 6 months. The post was titled A Mother's Return and detailed her experience in jail, framing it as persecution for standing up for children's health in an obesity epidemic. She talked about the other inmates who'd rallied around her, about writing letters to her followers, about her unwavering commitment to her daughter's well-being despite the system trying to tear their family apart. She makes it sound like she was in prison for civil disobedience, Marcus said, reading the post aloud. Like she's some kind of martyr. The comment section exploded with support. Thousands of people welcoming her back, praising her strength, condemning the corrupt system that had imprisoned a loving mother. Some followers organized a welcome home party for her, posting photos of themselves holding signs saying, "We stand with Patricia and justice for healthy families." The post ended with a promise. I will never stop fighting for my daughters. They need me, whether they know it yet or not. A mother's love doesn't come with conditions or court orders. Timestamp 42. Mom's first attempted contact came 3 days after her release. I was leaving debate practice when I found an envelope tucked under my car's windshield wiper. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter, pages and pages of Mom's distinctive loopy handwriting. It started with declarations of love, how much she'd missed me, how she'd thought about me every day in jail. Then it shifted to passive-aggressive observations about how I must be struggling without her guidance, how I'd probably gained weight, she was right, how I needed her to help me get back on track. The final paragraph was more direct. I know they're turning you against me, Jordan. Your father, those therapists, everyone wants to poison your mind with lies. But I'm still your mother. I still love you. When you're ready to come home, I'll be waiting. We can fix this together. I showed the letter to Dad. He immediately contacted Mom's probation officer, who documented the violation, but said without proof that Mom had personally placed the letter, they couldn't take action. She could claim someone else left it on her behalf, the probation officer explained. Without video evidence or witnesses, our hands are tied. Timestamp 43. A week later, Riley received a package at Serenity Hills. Someone had found out where she was being treated and mailed a box full of Mom's old diet books, supplements, and exercise DVDs. There was no return address, no note, but we all knew who sent it. The package sent Riley into a tailspin. She refused to eat for 2 days, exercised in her room until staff intervened, regressed in ways that alarmed her treatment team. "She's found a way in," Riley told me during a visit, her voice hollow. "Even here, even with all these walls and rules and therapy, she found a way in." Dr. Martinez increased Riley's therapy sessions and adjusted her meal plan. She also recommended extending Riley's stay by at least another 2 months. The setback was significant. "Your mother's ability to manipulate situations is extraordinary," Dr. Martinez told Dad privately. "She's not bound by normal social constraints or ethical considerations. She'll exploit any loophole, use any tactic. You need to be prepared for a long-term strategy to protect your daughters." Timestamp 44. Mom's next move was more subtle and infinitely more damaging. She'd made contact with my school, spinning a story about being an estranged mother who just wanted to ensure her daughter was okay. She'd spoken with the principal, with the school counselor, with several of my teachers, painting Dad as controlling and me as troubled. I first learned about it when my English teacher, Mr. Peterson, pulled me aside after class. "Jordan, I got a call from your mother yesterday. She's concerned about you." My stomach dropped. "She's not allowed to contact me. There's a restraining order. She didn't ask to speak to you directly. She just wanted to check on your well-being, make sure you were adjusting okay after everything that happened." "What did she tell you?" Mr. Peterson looked uncomfortable. "That you'd been through a difficult time, that your father was struggling to manage 2 teenage daughters on his own, that she was worried about your academic performance and emotional state." "None of that is true. She's the reason Riley nearly died. She's the reason we have restraining orders." But I could see doubt in Mr. Peterson's eyes. Mom had been convincing, had presented herself as the reasonable, worried parent. And I was just a stressed-out junior with a history of family drama. Timestamp 45. Dad hired a family law attorney who specialized in stalking and harassment cases. The attorney, Michael Brennan, reviewed all the incidents and was blunt in his assessment. "She's being very careful to stay just on the legal side of the restraining order. No direct contact. All communications could theoretically be explained away as concerned maternal behavior. Unless we can prove a pattern of deliberate harassment, it's hard to get enforcement." "So what do we do?" Dad asked, frustration evident in his voice. "Document everything. Every letter, every package, every contact with third parties. Build a case. Eventually she'll slip up, cross the line in a way we can prove. When that happens, we strike hard." It felt like waiting for a bomb to explode rather than diffusing it. Timestamp 46. The explosion came in early April, during my school's spring showcase. I was scheduled to give a speech for the debate team, and several families were invited to attend. Dad was in the audience, as was Marcus, who'd driven up from UCLA for the weekend. Halfway through my speech about ethical responsibility in healthcare, I saw her. Mom was sitting in the back row, wearing sunglasses and a scarf, but I'd know her anywhere. My words faltered. My heart started racing. I lost my place in my notes. Security had been notified about the restraining order, but in the chaos of the evening event, she'd slipped through. By the time I alerted staff and they went looking for her, she was gone. But she'd left something behind, a bouquet of flowers with a card that read, "So proud of you. Love, Mom." The handwriting was unmistakable. This time, there was no denying it. Video footage from the school showed her entering the building, sitting in the audience, leaving the flowers. The probation violation was clear and documented. Timestamp 47. Mom was arrested the next day at her apartment in Northeast Portland. She'd been living in a small studio, collecting disability payments and maintaining her blog full-time. When police searched her apartment, they found disturbing evidence of continued obsession. She had a whole wall dedicated to Riley and me. Photos, some recent ones that she must have taken while surveilling us, arranged chronologically to show our weight changes. Charts tracking what she could observe about our eating habits. Printed copies of my debate speeches. Articles about Serenity Hills and eating disorder treatment. Most chilling was a journal where she'd been planning various strategies to rescue Riley from the treatment facility, including detailed escape routes and safe houses where she could take Riley to continue her healing properly. The probation officer and DA took the violation seriously. Mom was held pending a hearing, facing potential additional jail time. Timestamp 48. The hearing was scheduled for late April. Dad, Riley, and I all attended, sitting in the front row as Mom was led into the courtroom in restraints. She looked thinner than before, her hair unkempt, dark circles under her eyes. When her gaze found us, her expression shifted between heartbreak and rage. "You don't understand what you're doing," she called out to us before her attorney silenced her. "I'm trying to save you, both of you. You'll thank me one day." Judge Williams, the same judge who'd handled our custody case, reviewed the evidence of the probation violation with clear disapproval. The stalking behavior, the third-party contacts, the apartment shrine to her daughters, it painted a picture of someone deeply unwell and unwilling to accept boundaries. "Mrs. Chen," Judge Williams said, "you have repeatedly and deliberately violated the terms of your probation and the restraining orders meant to protect your children. Your obsessive behavior demonstrates that you pose a continued threat to their safety and well-being." She sentenced Mom to 18 months in prison, followed by 5 years of supervised probation with mandatory psychiatric treatment. She also extended the restraining orders until Riley turned 21 and I turned 25. Mom's scream echoed through the courtroom. "You're killing them. Can't you see? They need me. They're getting fat and lazy, and you're all just letting it happen." Even her own attorney looked relieved when security led her away. Timestamp 48. The weeks following Mom's second incarceration brought a strange sense of peace mixed with persistent anxiety. We knew she was physically contained, unable to reach us for at least a year and a half, but her psychological presence lingered like smoke in our lungs. Riley was finally discharged from Serenity Hills in May, after 14 months of intensive treatment. She came home looking physically healthy but emotionally fragile, like a vase that had been glued back together, whole but covered in visible cracks. Recovery isn't an endpoint, Dr. Martinez reminded us during Riley's discharge conference. It's an ongoing process. Riley will need continued outpatient therapy, regular check-ins with a nutritionist, and strong family support. Triggers will happen. Setbacks will occur. The key is having systems in place to handle them. We set up Riley's new room in the apartment with careful attention to her needs. No mirrors except a small one in the shared bathroom. No scales anywhere in the house. A bookshelf full of novels she'd always wanted to read, but Mom had forbidden as time-wasting. Art supplies because Riley was discovering she loved to paint, something she'd never had time for during her years of forced exercise. Timestamp 49. Adjusting to life as a family of 3, plus Marcus when he visited, required deliberate effort. We had to establish new patterns that weren't based on fear and control. Dad would cook meals and we'd eat together, sometimes in comfortable silence, sometimes with easy conversation. No one commented on portion sizes or food choices. No one mentioned calories or fat grams, but the ghosts of our past were always present. Riley would sometimes freeze while eating, fork halfway to her mouth, eyes going distant. I learned to recognize those moments and would gently redirect her attention, reminding her she was safe, that food was just fuel, that her body deserved nourishment. "Sorry," she'd say, coming back to herself. "I heard Mom's voice. She was saying, 'It doesn't matter. It's not real.'" "The voice gets quieter," I'd tell her. "That's what Dr. Park says. The more you replace it with truth, the quieter it gets." I was speaking from my own experience with therapy, where I was still working through my own patterns of disordered thinking around food and body image. Timestamp 50. The end of my junior year brought unexpected recognition. I'd won a regional debate championship and was being considered for a scholarship to several universities. Ms. Rodriguez pulled me aside after the awards ceremony with tears in her eyes. "Jordan, I've been teaching for 8 years. I've never had a student who's overcome as much as you have and still achieved at this level. You should be incredibly proud of yourself." Her words unlocked something in me. I started crying right there in the school hallway, all the stress and fear and determination of the past year pouring out. She hugged me while I sobbed, and when I finally pulled away, I felt lighter. "Thank you," I managed, "for seeing me, for not giving up on me even when things were really bad." "That's my job," she said with a smile. "Well, that and teaching you kids how to argue effectively." Timestamp 51. That summer, Dad proposed a family trip. Nothing elaborate, just a week at a rental house on the Oregon coast. He'd never taken proper vacations when we were growing up, always too busy with work, and he wanted to create different memories. We drove to Cannon Beach in late June, renting a small cottage near Haystack Rock. The days fell into an easy rhythm. Morning walks on the beach, afternoons reading on the porch, evenings cooking dinner together. Marcus brought Jessica, and watching my brother in a healthy, loving relationship felt like seeing a glimpse of what normal looked like. One evening, Riley and I walked along the beach after dinner, the sun setting in brilliant oranges and pinks. She stopped suddenly, looking out at the ocean. "I'm angry," she said. "At Mom?" "At everything. At Mom for what she did to us. At Dad for not stopping it sooner. At myself for being so weak, for letting it happen." "You weren't weak, Riley. You were a child. I was old enough to know something was wrong, but I wanted her to love me so badly that I convinced myself starving was normal, that nearly dying was worth it if it made her proud." She started crying, and I put my arm around her shoulders. We stood there as the tide came in, waves washing around our feet, while Riley finally allowed herself to grieve for the childhood she'd lost. Timestamp 52. Senior year started with cautious optimism. I was applying to colleges, dreaming about a future that existed separate from our traumatic past. Riley was back at Lincoln High as a freshman, starting over with the same school where she'd previously been known as the sick girl. But kids can be cruel, and rumors persisted. Riley came home crying more than once about comments people made, about whispers when she walked by. Some people said she was faking for attention. Others said she was crazy. A few said she deserved what happened for being weak. "I want to transfer schools," she told Dad after a particularly bad week. "I can't handle everyone knowing." "Running away doesn't solve anything," Dad said gently. "But if you truly want to transfer, we can look into it." Riley thought about it for a long time. "No, I'm tired of running. Mom controlled where we went, what we ate, what we did. I'm not letting bullies control me too." She started seeing the school counselor regularly and joined the art club, finding a small community of students who accepted her without judgment. Timestamp 53. My college applications became all-consuming that fall. I was applying to several schools in California and Washington, places far enough from Portland to feel like a fresh start, but close enough to visit Riley regularly. My personal essay was the hardest part, trying to write about resilience and growth without making our family trauma into trauma porn. Ms. Rodriguez helped me edit draft after draft until I had something that felt authentic. "You're telling your story on your terms," she said. "That's powerful." I got my first acceptance in December, UC Berkeley with a partial scholarship. I ran through the apartment screaming, causing Dad to drop the dish he was washing. Riley tackled me in a hug, both of us laughing and crying. "You're getting out," she said. "You're really getting out." "We both are," I promised her. "This is just the beginning." Timestamp 54. Mom sent letters from prison occasionally, though we never opened them. Dad would collect them and file them away, documentation of her continued obsession. Sometimes I was tempted to read them, to see if there was any acknowledgement of what she'd done, any real remorse. But I knew what I'd find. More justifications, more manipulation, more attempts to rewrite history. "She'll never change," Dad said once when another letter arrived. Personality disorders like hers don't respond well to treatment, especially when the person doesn't believe there's anything wrong with them. "Do you think she actually believes she was helping us?" Dad considered this carefully. "I think she's constructed a reality where she's the hero and everyone else is wrong. In her mind, she's the only one who truly loves you girls, the only one trying to save you. That delusion is unshakable." It was a sobering thought, that Mom would go to her grave believing she'd been right all along. Timestamp 55. Riley's 15th birthday in December was the first one celebrated without fear. We threw her a party at the apartment, inviting her art club friends and a few teachers who'd supported her. There was cake, real cake with frosting and candles. And Riley ate a piece without hesitation, without counting calories, without hearing Mom's voice. "This is the best birthday I've ever had," she said that night while we cleaned up. Not because of the gifts or the party, just because it was normal. Is that weird? Not even a little bit. She was still fragile, still working through layers of trauma and therapy, but she was also becoming someone new, discovering interests and passions that had been suppressed under Mom's regime. She wanted to study art history in college. She wanted to travel to museums in Europe. She wanted a life that was about more than weight and appearance and control. Timestamp 56. As winter break approached, marking 2 years since Riley's first hospitalization, we gathered for another family meeting. This time, the tone was different. We weren't discussing court dates or safety protocols. We were talking about the future. "I'm proud of all of us," Dad said, his voice thick with emotion. We survived something terrible and we're still here, still fighting, still healing. That takes incredible strength. Marcus raised his glass. To survival, to healing, Riley added. To the future, I said. We clinked our glasses together, and for a moment, I allowed myself to believe that we really were going to be okay. Not today, maybe not even next year. But eventually, we were on a path toward healing, toward reclaiming our lives from the woman who'd tried to destroy us. Mom still had over a year left in prison. Then would come years of probation and court-mandated treatment. By the time she was truly free, Riley would be an adult. I'd be in my 20s, and we'd both be living lives she couldn't touch. The thought brought a fierce satisfaction. We'd won. Not because we'd destroyed her, but because we'd survived her and built something better from the ruins she'd left behind. I graduated from Lincoln High in June with honors and multiple scholarship offers. Dad cried during my speech as valedictorian, and Riley cheered so loudly from the audience that people turned to look. I kept my speech focused on resilience and hope, on the idea that our worst moments don't have to define us. Afterward, Ms. Rodriguez hugged me tightly. Go change the world, Jordan, and don't forget to come back and visit sometimes. I could never forget you. You saved me, just by seeing me, by caring, by not giving up. You saved yourself, she corrected gently. I just held space for you to do it. Timestamp 57. That summer before college felt suspended in time. Riley and I spent long days together, knowing that come August, everything would change. We'd drive to the coast, walk through Powell's Books in downtown Portland, sit in cafes and talk about everything and nothing. I'm scared, Riley admitted during one of these outings. Not of Mom, of forgetting, of letting my guard down and slipping back into old patterns. That's why you keep going to therapy. That's why you keep working at it every day. Are you scared about going to Berkeley? Terrified, I admitted, but also excited. I'm ready to figure out who I am when I'm not defined by our family trauma. Will you call me, even when you're busy with college stuff? Every single day if you want. We're in this together, Riley. Distance doesn't change that. Timestamp 58. Moving to Berkeley in late August was harder than I'd expected. Not because I didn't want to go, but because leaving Riley felt like abandoning her. Even though I knew she was safe with Dad, even though she had her support systems in place. The day I left, Riley helped me pack the car. She'd made me a care package full of art she'd created, paintings and drawings that represented different aspects of our journey. One was particularly striking. 2 figures climbing out of a dark pit, reaching toward light. For when you forget how far you've come, she said, handing it to me. We hugged goodbye in the apartment parking lot, both of us crying. I love you, I told her. Thank you for fighting. Thank you for surviving. Thank you for saving me, she whispered back. Timestamp 59. College was overwhelming at first. So many people, so much freedom, so many choices to make without anyone controlling or monitoring me. I had moments of panic, times when I couldn't decide what to eat because no one was telling me what I should or shouldn't have. My roommate, a cheerful girl named Sophie from San Diego, noticed my struggles. Hey, are you okay? You've been staring at the dining hall menu for like 10 minutes. I almost brushed it off, but something made me tell the truth. I'm working through some stuff with food. My mom had really strict rules growing up, and I'm still figuring out how to make normal choices. That sounds hard, Sophie said simply. Want me to just grab us both the pasta? It's really good here. Her casual acceptance, her lack of judgment, helped more than she could know. I was learning that healing happened in those small moments of being treated normally, of not being defined by my past. Timestamp 59:30. Mom was released from prison during my second semester at Berkeley. I got the notification from Dad and immediately felt my stomach drop. Old fears resurfacing. But she was on strict probation now, with GPS monitoring and regular check-ins. She'd moved to Eugene, Oregon, over 100 miles from Portland as part of her probation terms. She can't touch you, Dad reminded me over the phone. She can't touch Riley. We have every protection in place. I know, it's just knowing she's out there again. It brings everything back. That's normal. Talk to your therapist about it. Don't let her have more power than she deserves. He was right. I'd worked too hard to let Mom's release derail my progress. Timestamp 60. Now, standing here 2 years later, I can see how far we've all come. Riley is thriving as a junior at Lincoln High, preparing for her own college applications. She wants to study art therapy, to help other kids who've been through trauma. She still has hard days, but they're fewer and farther between. Marcus got engaged to Jessica, and they're planning a summer wedding. He's working as a financial analyst in Los Angeles and talks about eventually moving back to the Northwest to be closer to family. Dad reduced his travel significantly and took a position managing a local team. He's dating someone, a kind woman named Lisa who owns a bookstore. He's learning to be present, to be the father he wishes he'd been all along. And me? I'm majoring in psychology and considering law school. I want to work in family law, helping kids in situations like ours navigate the system, protecting them from parents who hurt them in the name of love. Mom is still out there, still maintaining her blog, though her following has dwindled. The restraining orders remain in place. Sometimes I wonder if she thinks about us, if there's any part of her that regrets what she did. But mostly, I try not to think about her at all, because this story isn't really about her. It's about survival. It's about Riley and me finding our way out of the darkness Mom created. It's about Dad learning to be present. It's about Marcus forgiving himself. It's about all of us building new lives from the wreckage of our family. We're not fixed. We're not healed. We probably never will be completely, but we're okay. And some days, being okay is enough. If you're living through something similar, if you're trapped in a situation where love is used as a weapon and control is disguised as care, please tell someone. Please ask for help. It's not normal. It's not love. And you deserve better. We all deserve better.